All right, let's do this. I've had some nice messages from people recently, and first of all, I just want to say that some of my viewers, they have good taste in music. They reference nice record labels and tracks and artists that are not necessarily the obvious ones. So people listen to good stuff, and I'm glad to hear. So, for example, people referencing Drexia. There's a record label called CPU Records, and who else can I think of? Talked about CPU Records and Drexia and Ski Mask, another amazing artist. I think there's something about his sort of mastering, mixing that makes his music sound really interesting. And also, I'm going to experiment with something today, which is a sort of a mashup between a couple of requests I've had recently where people said, oh, can you show me how to like follow a track and recreate it? And as I was mentioning in the last video, I am not so good at absolutely replicating anything, but I really do think it is an amazing way of making, what am I trying to say? It is amazing, an amazing tool of actually making things in new ways, because the goal is sort of defined. There is a bit of a focus to it. And for me, it's perhaps more of capturing the feeling of a sound or a track or whatever it is that you're listening to, rather than just trying to do a carbon copy. I don't think I would ever be able to do that. And so I'm going to try to experiment with that today. So I had a message the other day on my YouTube channel asking, can you show me how to create atmospheres and sort of droney stuff, pads, I suppose, and gave me the reference track Sunken Paths by Mikron, which is released on the great record label CPU Records. I don't think I'd heard that track before, so I had a listen. I don't want to play on here. I'm going to put a link in the description. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. I'm just worried of getting copyright strikes. So I'm going to encourage you to go and listen to that track, and especially focus on the drones and pad stuff to see, so you can hear the reference track that we're talking about. While we were talking about CPU Records, I think you should also go and check out Cracked Dice by London Modular Alliance, which I think is one of their more recent releases. I've had that on repeat for the last week or so. I think it's absolutely excellent. It's perhaps leaning more towards electro rather than strictly IDM and glitch, but the atmosphere in that track is amazing. And also gosh, I don't have your name up in front of me, but you know who you are, who likes Mikron. I think you should also check that track, because that might have the sort of atmospheres and things that you enjoy. Let me know if that's the case. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to spend, I don't know, let's say about something 40 minutes or something, and I'm just going to make a bunch of droney patches while I'm just talking rubbish, and hopefully you will learn something from it. Actually, let's remove that. I've just done a really quick little MIDI track here. It's just shifting between two minor chords. I don't know if it's probably not exactly these chords that Sunken Paths are using, is used in Sunken Paths, but it gives a similar feel. So let's just meander off and see if we can get something that's not going to sound the same, but maybe something within that same category of sound as Sunken Paths. It's going to be a bit of exploring. I don't know where we're going to end up quite. So let's keep it simple. We're just going to use an analog from, which is one of the standard synths that comes with Ableton. And if I just play this now, it's going to sound pretty hard. So it's just shifting between those chords. And if you're listening to Sunken Paths, I think one of the things you can see there, or hear, I suppose, is that it comes across as quite muffled. So we're going to use the frequency and the filter to just muffle it down a bit. I'm just going to listen to this reference track. I'm not going to play it to you, so I don't think you can hear this. Just to see if I can end up in the same realm as... We need to have a bit of a shift. We need to fade in and fade out, don't we? Now we're starting to end up in that territory, same as Mikron. So by default, the analog has got both oscillators turned on, and it's using a sawtooth wave. And I think that's probably also what Sunken Paths is doing. While we are doing this, we want to have just to see what's going on in the frequency spectrum. Let's just bring in an EQ8 that can sit there. We don't change anything on it yet. You can see sort of where things are happening. So one of the things when you're making pads, I don't know if this is what you were after when you were asking the question, is that I think a successful pad has got a bit of movement in there. And even if it just holds the same chord or plays the same tone throughout, the sound is never constant. There are little movements in there. And we can just do that, for example, by using an LFO, which creates a waveform that's probably quite fast as it is now. So slow that down a bit, and then you can go into the frequency here, and then you can have that waveform using the LFO to modulate the frequency. So let's see how that sounds. It's a bit much, maybe. Just a very subtle movement. Maybe we can actually use both filters. We turn that one on as well. So we can have oscillator 1 going through the first filter and oscillator 2 going through the second filter. Let me see. So if we click on the volume section here, we can see how it's routed. So if we click on that one, we can see that they're running in parallel now. Like, so it goes through the orange, which is the pitch and stuff, and I think the green is the filter, and the blue at the end is this, which is the amp. Would like to have the same amp though. I just want to have separate filters. There is no option for that. Okay, so we just have to set the amps to the same thing. So what's that amp doing? That looks like that. So I have to set that to linear. So then we need to have LFO2 turned on as well, and we set that to slightly different speed. So you can see here, this waveform is a bit faster than the one above. So if we just pull that down, maybe it can be a bit slower. So you can see they're not exactly identical. And then we can go in here to the filter, and then we can set LFO2 can. So you can have those sort of filters that sort of drift in and out one another. And then also, just let's listen to Mikron again. It's obviously got a bit of a reverb in there as well. Important stuff for pads and drones. So let's add just a standard reverb in. Let's talk about the reverb effect a bit, because it has got so many things going on in here. I'm not going to talk through the entire plugin, but there are a few things that I just want to mention. Number one is the quality section, which is set to echo, which I think stands for economical, and it doesn't use as much CPU. And then high, which it sounds quite different. Mid, I hardly ever use. I'm actually going to maybe do that as an effort, just making some sort of mediocre reverb. No, I don't know. I also want to mention that echo and high does not necessarily mean that high sounds better, even though I tend to use high a lot more often. To my ears, the economical one sounds much more synthetic. It sounds more like some old 90s rack reverb or something. I don't know exactly what the difference is in the algorithms. The high one sounds a bit more natural, but sometimes you really want a synthetic reverb, and I think that's quite nice. So let's see, now we haven't changed anything here. The knob that I think makes the biggest difference is the decay time, and that's basically how long the reverb tail rings out. So we just turn that up quite a lot. So now when I stopped, I've already stopped it, and you can see like you get those sort of ringing out for quite a while. You can change dry wet. Actually, let's put EQ before the reverb. We're going to try something else, because if you listen to the Mikron track, that pad sort of hovers in the background, which is something that I struggled with for quite a long time. I couldn't really achieve that until I realized that a thing that you can do with pads is put a bandpass filter on it. And that basically, if you think of a low pass filter, cuts off all the high end, and when you turn the cutoff frequency, you know, you're just like shaving off all the transients in there, and high pass is the reverse. A bandpass takes off some low frequencies and some high frequencies, and where the epicenter is where you don't cut frequencies. And you can do that with an equalizer as well. So we can do that. Which one is it? Is it that one? No. Well, we can sort of do that. So you take the first node. Are they called nodes? I don't know what they're called. And then we can do one higher up here, and we do that one as high cut. So you're shaving off quite a lot of frequencies here. But ending up in a similar territory to the original track now, actually. Another thing that you can do if you want to achieve that sunken path effect. I don't know if this is makes sense or if it's of interest, but one thing that's obviously happening there is like when you got a kick, the it's using compression to some side chaining that actually every time the kick hits, the volume of the pad or droney thing sort of goes down a bit, and that creates a bit of a pulsating effect. I don't know if that's something that would be interesting to you, so we can just try that. So we got our pad, we have cut out all those frequencies. Oh, actually, what I wanted to say about cutting frequencies like this is good for other reasons too, because as you start building your track, and you might have some bass line and you have some drums and you have some, yes, whatever else you might want to put in there, there's going to be frequencies building up and fighting over the same space. And by doing something like this, you are cutting out frequencies from this sound that is actually not that important to you, which will free up space like above here and perhaps a bit below as well. Now, the epicenter here sits at 200 hertz, which is where often pads land, but it's maybe my pet hate frequency because I personally often get quite a lot of build up there and it can sound very muddy. But now when we have carved out some space for this pad here, maybe we can just being really mindful of the other sounds we're using. Anyway, so let's get some side chaining going. Oh, there was already an analog there. So we have in our next channel, just for the sake of argument, let's just take the 808 core kit that comes with Ableton. And I'm just going to do a super basic 4 on the floor pattern. So at the moment, sounds like this. So now you don't have that pumping effect. So we go back into our pad here, and then we're going to add a glue compressor. You can use the regular compressor as well, I think, for similar effect. So we put the compressor on the pad, and we click on that little triangle to open up sidechain. So how this, yeah, again, not in detail, but how a compressor works is to, I suppose in more conventional use, it's a good tool to just normalize the volume of something. So let's say someone is singing into a microphone and they might hold the microphone away from their mouth and all of a sudden they're really close to it. But as a recording, you want to have more of an even sound. And what you can do with the compressor is that you have a threshold. So when it how shall I say this? You set the threshold, and when it reaches that threshold, it will lower the volume. It will push the volume down. Gosh, I'm not explaining this very well. Do you know what? Like, have a look at another video on how compression works. Basically, open this triangle, click sidechain, and which one do you want to listen to? So we want to take the 808 core kit, which is the one that we, which is the other channel there. And so we can see here when it's not doing any compression yet. So we turn the sidechain threshold down. Now we're going to start getting some pumping here. We don't want to have any attack and maybe quite a long release. So now you can hear we're getting that pumping effect. Okay, that was quite a basic pad. We're going to make lots more and more interesting pads that you can play around with. So hopefully that was helpful. Don't know. I'm going to skip. No, I can keep the compressor in there, and you can just like, if you want to sponsor me on Patreon, you will be able to grab all these pads that I'm making in this video. So if you grab this one, for example, you will have to go into the compressor and set that to whichever channel you want the sidechain to come in from. Okay, so let's make go into our preset folder and instruments, and we got fellow passenger and pads. It's a pad pack, isn't it? Can we make a new folder in here? Yes, TFP pad pack. Okay. So we grab that whole shebang, real bad word. Okay, what should we call this one? TFP pad 1. Okay, now we need to make something completely different. We can use lots of techniques of, let's mute the kick. Oh, we even muted the kick, but it's still picking up the compression. So let's skip that sound altogether. We can look at other ways where you can create a little bit of movement and other ways of creating pads. Do you know what? We can create a pad using, there is an effect which I cannot remember. Is it vinyl distortion? Maybe. It's a crackle. Oh yes. I don't know how much of crackle, but let's remove that. Actually, I don't know how much that sounds like real vinyl crackle, but that adds a little random texture, which is nice, and we can turn this into a pad as well. That's quite atmospheric. So if we take that and then we go into the resonator. What this does is it's boosting different frequencies in. So if we open an EQ8, I wonder if we will see what's going on. Okay, so it's obviously boosting frequencies here. So if I turn note up and down, it should. Not so much, not so much. But it's quite low volume, isn't it? And then you can use these ones to boost different frequencies so we can create sort of chords. Let's go down. And then we can use, let's turn that off. That crackle just keeps going and going. So we can use an LFO maybe to have that frequency fluctuating slowly. If we map that LFO to that, that's just, so depth, is that the one? Yes, that's me. Then we get slightly less fluctuation there. We just turn the rate down so we have it slowly pulsating. Okay, what else can we do? We need to make longer tails. So let's put a reverb on it there. Turn the decay time up. So we can do a spectral resonator after that. It doesn't matter really. We're just going to turn this into long ambient mush, I think. Turn the unison up. It's quite low volume now, so let's just do a utility so we can add some gain here. Here again, we got an ever-evolving pad. Maybe I wanna, what can we do? Is it the, on that, we can do another LFO here that we map to that, maybe the shift. We have a random. Can we smooth that? Oh yeah, there. Smooth, random. So the other thing we can do here is the bandpass filter, can't we? Rather than using the EQ. There's some nice distortion happening there as well. Do the bandpass filter. And some reverb at the end. Can set this input EQ for the reverb. Do we like those distortion-y things? I'm not sure. Let's turn down the gain here a bit. Okay, ever-going drone. So let's save that one to our library as well as TFP non-stop droning. Okay, what can we do next? More little ambient drones and pads. Maybe we can go into instruments and we can use the Wavetable synth. So by default, this one is still mangling. Oh, I see it's playing that chord still. Okay, so it's got one of the basic wavetables in here, but the trick with this one, so well, we haven't used wavetable before, but you can scan through these wave shapes, and there's some other ones here that you get loads of them. But the trick is that you can drag any sample into there. So let's take something that I have sampled. What can we do? Do I have some random voice samples that I could use? Oh, actually, we can just take a loop that I've made. Let's take a loop. Where do you live there? Okay, so we can go. That's not search. Some ambient thing I've done. Let's take a beat. Okay, and then you just drag the sample into here, and then you can scan through them, and you can warp them and fold. So you can obviously create loads of textures in that way. So if, let's just make a chord, and then we can, let's make a C minor chord here. Maybe we go down an octave. Let's add a bit of envelope. Okay, that's quite nice. So we can go into, in this particular one, it's got lots of built-in LFOs. So let's say if you turn, or use any of the, let's do the fold here. Then fold will show up here, and we want LFO 1 to control the fold. We click on LFO 1, how fast is it? We don't want it to re-trigger every time you press the key. We just want this LFO to continue going regardless. To slow it down. And then we maybe want to animate this as well. But maybe we want to do that more sample and hold style. Just turn the re-trigger off, and then we go in here, and this is position. So when we have sample and hold, where the waveform looks like this, as in sort of random, we can set that to sync to the beat of the track. And then after this, we can put a delay maybe that captures those little glitches when it jumps. Ping pong delay maybe. So maybe we can set the filters, it filters bandpass again. Maybe we can use LFO1 to change the frequency of the filter. You see how that's sort of slowly drifting back and forth. Create a little bit of that sort of effect. Let's do some reverb on here. Let's turn the chorus off. It's gone very quiet again. Do we want to have that sample and hold? Shape. Do we want to have it smooth? That's interesting, that does that little squiggle. So what do we want to do? Do we want to have some EQ on there? Probably. As you see here, this is one of those sounds that just takes up so much frequency spectrum. It's just all over. So I think, should we do a little bit of band passing here? Ding ding. But let's just not do it around 200 because we don't need more around 200. It's always too many frequencies there anyway. We need a bit of utility. Maybe we want a bit of distortion on this one. Do you think so? Yeah, of course. Let's do some. Should we do some overdrive? Distortion and saturation and those sort of effects are interesting because they add a lot of upper harmonics. So maybe we are sort of undoing our little EQ here. No. Okay, let's save that one as well into our presets. And that, what should we say? TFP distorted droning. So what we're going to do now, actually, let's take what we have done and let's record a C minor audio thing. So if we just set up an audio, we let's resample another audio track. We set that to armed, and then let's just record some stuff. Okay, so we've got a bunch of recording now. Let's ditch that one. We don't need that anymore. And now we can look at taking the thing that we recorded and then we chuck that into a sampler, for example. Did you go, you little sampler? Oops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to drag you into here. And then as we sample the chord, it will... I think it's called planing in jazz, when you just literally play the same chord, but just up or down the keyboard. Sounds quite rave somehow, so chord memory. So now we can start manipulating this further. So in the sampler, let's make a bit of an envelope on there. We can do bandpass filter again. And we can infuse some FM into it. If we go into the pitch and oscillator thing here. Quite like the sound of that, actually. Maybe we can do some, we're going to modulators, we add an LFO, and we have that slowly drifting on the volume of the, infusing a bit of sine wave into there. Why can't I see the waveform here? I don't understand why I'm not seeing the waveform here. I can hear it being affected. Okay, since I turned the filter off, it's just taking up too much of the frequency spectrum. Let's just add some more effects to this. Frequency shifting. Pitch it down loads. This is beyond repair anyway, so we can just keep destroying this. So we can do a grain delay, just no idea which note we're playing or anything. More reverb. Turn it to high this time. Quite a sort of cinematic horror feel to that one. Let's save that one. That's interesting. Boom. Let's put that in there. TFP horror drones. Okay, so this doesn't sound anything like the Sunken Paths Mikron track anymore. It doesn't matter. We're all just making pads and things here. Another interesting, effective way of doing these sort of sounds is to use a granular sampler. Granular, is that what they're called? There's one that is a really old one that comes with Max for Live. I think it's Robert Henke who's made it. The guy, one of the guys behind Ableton. I think it's behind Ableton. Also known as Monolake. Amazing music. If you haven't listened to Monolake yet, do it. White_2 is a track that I could warmly recommend. Or Beacom is good as well. Let me see. Granulator. That's what it's called. There are some more clever ones out on the market now, but I think this one will do the trick. It's for free to download if you don't have it already. So let's put the sample in here. Let's put a sample. Let's put samples. We can take anything, but something with a bit more length, perhaps. That one will do. So this can play multiples of the same sound. At the moment, by default, it's playing the same bit, but if I set it to spray, I think we get a bit more variety. As you can see here, it plays different parts of the sample. It's maybe better to have something with a tone to it. So let's take these sound like. Maybe that. We get those little granular effects, and I think we can enhance the granularity. Let's put an echo on there. And then we can go in here to character and turn the repitch off, and then we can have the set that to fluctuate a little bit. Oh, is it wobble? Is that what that does? Yes. It's not quite a pad at the moment. So we've used the reverb to create a bit of a longer tail and just stretching the sound a bit. The other thing we did was to use the resonators to do that as well. Now we're going to use something different. We are going to go into dynamics. Is that where we want to be? No, that's not at all where we want to be. We want to go to reverbs and resonance, and we want to add a vocoder because by default that is set to the noise as carrier, and then we can infuse some noise into this with a bit of tail if we turn off the release. Sounds very gentle. I'm just pressing these chords. Okay, that's quite an interesting sound. I don't know how much of in the pad category it ends up, but it ends. I'll put this in the pack as well. Presets, fellow passenger. Where do you TFP here? I can do a TFP. Granular bits, not a pad. Something like that. It's still an interesting sound. Interesting sound. So, shall we try and do something a bit more like the cracked dice track that I like, also on CPU records by the eminent London Modular Alliance. I don't know if this is true, but I think it is the guys who run the shop London Modular, maybe. I have been to their shop. I have bought things from them in the past. I never lived particularly close to it, so it's the sort of place that you would really need to make an effort, well, for me to make an effort to go to. It's in quite an industrial area, which a lot of cool things are happening. Hackney Wick, I haven't been there for years, for obvious reasons, because I've moved to the countryside recently, but also I actually don't even know, are they still around just because of COVID? I suppose they've been selling things online, maybe. What do we want to do? We want to create that. Maybe it's more of a sine wavy pad in that track. Link in the description again, so you can listen to it. I don't want to get copyright strikes. Let's just make some little MIDI thing here going where we have we just do another C minor chord. Okay, sounds good. Let's create a bit of a moving in and moving out envelope, attack and decay. Oh, how did you do that ping? Quite like it though. Nice. Why does it do that? This one is doing something interesting with panning. Just listening to the track in the background here. So the second oscillator needs to also have a bit of an envelope. Need more LFOs, don't we? So we can have that LFO. So we got that one doing its thing. But they got that stereo thing happening. So we can maybe, if we group this and then we just make a copy of that group. So we have two identical ones, but this one is pan to the left and that one is pan to the right. So this one, we want to do the same here. We want to map that to the volume here, the second oscillator, and this one needs to run at a different speed. Offsetting them against each other. I think this one, if we pitch it, just take it down an octave. Again, it doesn't really sound like the Modular Alliance track, but it still sounds interesting, I think. Let's add an auto filter to this, group it together and put that reverb, and we can do, should we do the auto filter after the reverb? So we just restrict what the reverb is letting through. Set that to high, maybe. I've got a feeling that this is maybe... Why are you spinning now? Whoops. C sharp minor. Be quite nice if we have those two. Let's merge those, Command J, and the second one will go up. So I didn't save that chord structure, but I'm going to save you the sound from this one. Okay, I am better gonna call it a day. I hope this was interesting. You will be able to grab these patches that I've made in this video if you sponsor me on Patreon. It would mean loads. I want to make more of these videos, and I would love if I could just go down in time at work, like doing 1 day less each week of actual 9 to 5 work and spend more on this. And I've finally got my camera as well, so now I can start filming the modular stuff. It's gonna happen. Love it. Okay, so what should we call this one? Cracked pad drifting. Okay, there we are. Thank you very much for watching. Please send through any other ideas you might have for content, but also would love to hear some stuff that you're making. Maybe you got some ideas from some of these techniques. Please don't forget to check me out on Patreon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.